Notice, in accordance with the new copyright regulations, this episode, Quoth the Raven, is intended for ages 16 and up, while some of the content will feature kid-friendly sometimes. The context of the episode is to address adults and inform those that content for them to research and consumers in service of their youth. In other words, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, teachers, librarians, etc. There is the possibility of adult language present on the episode as well, rated TV 16 and up. Welcome again, once again, to another edition of Quoth the Raven. Louis Brett Raven, I'm your host. Louis Brett Raven, 29-year veteran writer, illustrator, and editor of comic, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. This week is our Friday night genre talk, and this week's co-host is a fellow veteran author of comics and prose fiction and screenwriter, and an actor as well, Mr. Bobby Nash.
Hi there.
Yes. And
thanks so much for having me. It sounds like it'll be a fun topic.
Oh, yes. We're going to do our best. Yeah. Well, I was trying to get some of my other friends that have worked in the business, but everybody was just swamped at this time of year somehow. And I was thinking everybody would not be working because of COVID, but it just didn't work out that way. It was like, no, I've got this to do and that to do. I'm like, oh, okay. It is.
Yeah. Here in the Atlanta, here in the Atlanta area, there's a lot of stuff filming right now. So
yeah, that's exactly what it is. I don't know if you know Chris and Miracle Burns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're actually right now shooting. So it's like that's why they're not here. But Pop Culture Avenger says, "Good evening, Raven and Mr. Nash." Okay, let's go ahead and for those of you who don't know Bobby's body of work, give them a little bit of background on yourself a little bit before we get into our discussion.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a writer primarily. I write novels, comics. I've dabbled in some screenplays, some audio scripts, things like that. So, I'll write on a napkin if a publisher's paying for it. You know how we do. I write a lot of stuff in multiple genres, but I do a lot of like thrillers and crime fiction novels and things like that.
I've pulled the camera back and you can see stuff behind you. You can show. You can like.
Yes. Some of the these are a couple of my series here with Sheriff Myers of Summersville, Georgia, and Snow, which is an action thriller series, and then the old standby Domino Lady, who I've written, who's a pulp character from the 30s, and that I've written quite a number of times, and I'm still writing. I still do stuff with Domino Lady whenever I can. So. And I also dabble a little bit in art, and as you mentioned, I do a little acting here and there. I do some stuff where it's small roles, and I do some background stuff and things like that. It's quite fun.
Yes.
I really enjoy being on set. That's it's a lot of fun to watch and see how they do things, and it's almost like going to film school.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's see. What you've been in? You were a character in the pilot episode of The Following with Kevin Bacon.
I was. Yes, I played an FBI agent. Yeah, I played an FBI agent. Most of the shots I was in, didn't make it to the final cut. There's a couple of shots where I'm there, but I was there for 3 days. So I was there for all the stuff that takes place inside the command center. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of shots of me delivering papers and, going through evidence and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then we came back on the third day. We were scheduled for 2 days. On the third day we worked, they brought 4 of us back for continuity, mm-hmm. because we were going to kick in the door of the suspect's house. So there would be some of the same people. And so we got to do that. And so It was a lot of fun because most of the stuff was happening. All the stuff filming with the main actors and the stars was filming inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
We're outside the house, outside the window, doing things, and so all these people are taking pictures of us because that's all they can see. So there's a lot of pictures of us floating around, collecting evidence in the yard of the suspect's house. So it was a lot of fun. It was that was a fun shoot to work. Yeah.
And he's also appeared on Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol was fun. I've done 2 episodes of Doom Patrol. I did in season 1. I think it's episode 2 or 3. I think it's 2. There's a bit where Negative Man is trying to hop a bus and leave town, and every time he's buying bus tickets, the bus will show up, and then as he goes to get on the bus, Negative Man will leave his body and so he won't let his body crumples without Negative Man in him, and so the force inside of him will not let him run.
Right.
And so I'm at the bus station. I'm there. I mean, I'm in the background, but I'm the only person there wearing a suit. And so, yes. And, but I'm the only person there wearing a suit. And so I'm wearing like all black. Oh, it's so hot too. So I'm wearing like a black suit and I'm wearing sunglasses. And so what they told me is just because, usually they say, ignore what they're doing. But my instruction was to keep an eye on him.
Right.
So like I'm a government stooge or something who is following him. So yes, everywhere we go, I'm like taking like sneak peeks to try to see what he's doing, and so which is cool because I got to watch the actor do what the actor does.
Right.
So that was season 1. That was a 1-day thing. That was fun.
And that was episode 2.
It was episode 2. Okay, and so season 2, it's episode 4, and they're having this big party to try to save the life of Danny the Street, who has become injured. And Danny is not a physical corporeal body, but Danny takes the form of like Danny was a street, like a real street with buildings and whatnot. When Danny gets injured, Danny takes the form of a brick. The brick gets broken, and they discover that what they want to do is I'm trying to do this as non-spoiler as possible. They need the healing power of other people to heal Danny. People that love Danny, their energy will help revive Danny.
Yes. And
so people that lived on Danny the Street were called.
It's kind of like, it's almost like the Tinkerbell moment. I believe.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And so
and here's the funny part. I've not seen season 2, just that little description, and I can get that point of it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, the people that lived with Danny on Danny Street were called Dannysons, and we were the weirdos, the outcasts, and so it was a lot of fun because of how they really dressed us up. At that point in time too, I had a full beard. I had grown a beard for another show, and so I had this beard, and so we had to get really made up. So it's probably the most extensive makeup job for being as a background actor I've ever done. I mean, they were painting us up. I had gold paint and jewels taped or glued to my face and glitter, and I mean, we were really made up, and they had me in this black and gold get up, and I had a what kind of hat are they called? The golfer cap, the little flat one, and they kept calling me Disco George because it's the George R.R. Martin type hat, and with the beard, I kind of resembled him. So and I worked with, and I was there 3 days.
You're going to do a George R.R. Martin biopic that you should be the one cast out.
Hey, I would grow the beard back out for that in a heartbeat. Yeah, so we filmed that, and we're in the Doom Patrol mansion, which is filmed in a real old mansion.
Yeah, it is an antebellum home. Yes.
Yeah, and so we were filming in there, and I'm right there with Robot Man and Negative Man, the actors that are playing them. And so we were together a lot. And so Robot Man kept referring to me as Disco George. And so it just kind of became a thing. but absolutely amazing.
That's Brendan Fraser.
Well, Brendan Fraser does the voice. These are the actors that were,
Right.
So Brendan Fraser and Matt Bomer weren't there when we were filming. It was it's the guys in the suits.
Physical suits, right.
But being able to see those suits close up, the suits are amazing. And, they look wonderful. They, how he's able to be as expressive as Robot Man in that, robot suit, excuse me, which is, it's heavy because when they yell cut, he has to sit down. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And
heavy, I mean, and it's not just the expressiveness. I mean, there's only one facial feature for that character. So it's got to be not just what Brendan brings to it voice-wise. That actor physically has to emote with body position.
With body language,
Yeah, body language.
Yeah, so, and the you can kind of tell on the show, but the suit too, because the face plate comes off. Because when they cut, they take, because there are lights inside of it blinking in his face, so he can't see very well.
Oh, damn!
Because there are lights blinking in his eyes, and so when they do cut, they take that out just because he doesn't want those in his eyes constantly.
His face, yeah.
But those guys were great, and that episode featured. To keep it in the theme of the show tonight, that we had visual special effects that they put in later,
right? The
special effects, but they also had visual effects in that episode that they did on stage,
right? Like or
well, there's a bit in there where Flex Mentallo is one of the characters. If you're not familiar with Flex Mentallo, his power came from. Like if he flexed certain muscles, he could cause things to happen.
Right.
And so they're trying to set up this party. And so Flex is like, well, can I help? And she's like, and so Rita is going like, yes, we need flowers and lights and this and that, and she starts. And so Flex starts like going, and, making his ear twitch. And so he starts flexing all these muscles. And so, like, lights fall down from the ceiling, and light it like string lights. And then, things pop over here. Behind me, there's a scene. You don't really see it well, but behind me, a table pops into existence with flowers and balloons on it. That I kind of like. It pops in right behind me, and I kind of like go, one of those type deals. It's there, and. So there's a lot of stuff like that. And so all of that was done physically, no digital effects there. It was all done there. And then he lifts the little girl up to hang the mirrored disco ball. And they did all that physically where she's on wires and, goes up, does the, and so it was really fun it's a very involved process watching because, they rehearse it to make sure it's going to work. And so we're watching how they do all of that. And so it's a very well choreographed thing because they're shooting it, with the camera, and they have more than one camera. And there was a big boom camera and there was a camera here, camera. And so they're trying to get as much coverage. And of course we shoot it 5 or 6 times because they move the camera. We're going to shoot it this way, or they're going to do close-ups on these guys. So we're still doing all the same stuff, even though we might not all be on because we don't know
what's going to play in the background.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't know what part the camera is actually going to catch.
Exactly.
And so we're still doing everything, as if we're on camera. Whether we are or not. And because sometimes you can see things where it's like, oh, there's the top of my head, or oh, that's my elbow, or The very first thing I was ever in, it's like the only part of me that made it to the final cut was that's my elbow. And but the weirdest thing from the acting standpoint is when you watch the show. When I watch these shows that I've been in, it looks weird to me because my memory of it is looking at it from this direction. I'm looking at it from my point of view, and the camera is looking at it the other way. So everything looks off to me. So it's like, oh yeah, that was going on. Because, I'm so focused on what me and the people I'm interacting with are doing that, yes, that episode is not about us over here talking about the party. It's about these guys doing this. But so when you see it, you see all these things and it just looks weird because I saw it from a totally different angle. But fun stuff.
I think that's why a lot of actors, they'll tell you, I don't watch my own work.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't. That's what happens. They get discombobulated from that.
Yeah. Well, because it does it. Because what I find is I have the memories associated with it are not always the memory of the shooting, but what we were doing between the takes, or more of my as much as I remember all we did that night, but more of the stuff that sticks out was the stuff of us chit chatting between takes. Because a lot of times, when we're on, especially doing background stuff, even though it looks like we're talking, we're not talking to people. No. There's a lot of pantomiming going on. There's because when you're on the set, and the camera, it's very quiet except for the actors talking, and so there's a bunch of people in the background going. And so later when you watch the episode and you hear
and you're faking speaking, nothing words come out, and then later what they do is they'll edit in background noise or edit in background conversations.
Right, and that's not us. Yeah.
And unless they decide to bring you back for a voiceover.
Yeah. Now we did. Yeah. Sometimes they will record us and say you can be loud in this one. I did some stuff once where we were on a show that we were filming the show dealt with football teams throughout the season. It was a show called Necessary Roughness. It had been done years ago.
Right. Yes.
And so they filmed all of the football scenes for the entire season in 1 week. Mm-hmm. And so we would just keep changing shirts to be different colors for the different teams.
Right.
And move around, and so it is a very odd experience to be clapping and cheering silently, like clapping silently. It's weird. It feels weird, but they would do that, and then they would do a take that says, "Okay, you guys go nuts, cheer, be loud," so that they would use that in the episode. So yeah, it's just very weird. It's a weird process. But it's really cool to see it all come together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then let's go ahead and start with our list then.
Okay.
First one I caught him up with was Lon Chaney. His original name was Leonidas Frank Cheney, also known as the Man of 1,000 Faces. He was born April 1st, 1883. He passed away August 26th, 1930. Stage and film actor, makeup artist, director, and screenwriter. Best known for The Miracle Man, filmed in 1919, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1923, Phantom of the Opera, 1925, London After Midnight, 1927, and The Unholy Three, 1930. I said he's arguably the greatest makeup technician and actor, not only of his era, but in the history of mankind, of filmmaking. But nearly 85% of his body of film work has been lost to time. I think it's no longer around because it got destroyed or it's lost. Mm-hmm. As we have no means to truly appreciate the whole of his contributions to the craft. His career started in 1913, with the film Poor Jake's Demise, and concluded in 1930 with his remake of The Unholy Three. During his 17-year career, he was featured that we know of in an astounding 76 short films and 84 feature films, for a total of 150 right there, or 160. And those are just the ones we know of. He may have been in more. as well. Many of them were character roles, often the villains that he would play under makeup that he himself developed and applied. Among his more famous roles, or most famous roles, include Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I did my best to get some decent shots. It's very hard to get some good shots from him.
Right.
Because it's so long ago and so much of his stuff has been lost to time. He did Fagin in the 1922 production of Oliver Twist. He was Eric the Phantom in The Phantom of the Opera 1925 and the Hypnotist or Vampire from London After Midnight in 1927. What do you think of that?
Cheney is fantastic, I think, and too. But back then too, like you said, he was his own makeup artist a lot of the time because these guys were coming from that theater background where you do your own makeup. So he was not only taking what he learned there, but he was coming up with new ideas of how to do makeup. And a couple of the photos you had just put up there too are some of the most famous of him, like the Phantom of the Opera, especially. I mean, that's a very famous shot of him with when the mask comes off and you see him for the first time, and he does that, that for the camera. And so he was able to do a lot, and it was believable. I mean, most people don't know what Lon Chaney looks like because what they know are the roles, and he made
it's not just that he was a very private person. He did not when he was off camera he's like he did not deal with paparazzi. He did not want to be a star. Very, very private individual. So most people didn't know who he was outside the makeup. Really.
Right. Yeah. And right. And he did, and he relished those roles where he could lose himself in the character.
Yes.
He wasn't trying to make quote unquote Lon Chaney movies. He was making Phantom of the Opera. So he was losing himself into those characters.
Yeah. Let's take another quick look at what he actually looks like. And of course, this is the makeup kit that he actually made,
right?
And stuff that he's
very reminiscent of makeup kits that are still used today.
Yep. My kitty wants attention.
Yeah, because a lot of we talk about today how technology has advanced so much, but there's still a lot of techniques that are used in makeup or filming or whatever that are still the same techniques they used back then.
Yep, that's true. My kitty is...
Because I know, like for when I was on Doom Patrol, I mean, the makeup was put on us with brushes and glue and paint and makeup out of a makeup kit. And, the makeup artist that worked on me, her kit looked a lot like that.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to get my cat out of here.
It's okay.
He's just being a pain in the butt today. But let's see. How he passed away, though, was really sad. It was during the filming of Thunder in the winter of 29. He developed pneumonia, and he was diagnosed with bronchial lung cancer. This was exacerbated when artificial snow from the film was lodged in his throat during filming, and it caused a serious infection. And despite aggressive treatment, his condition had gradually worsened, and he died of a throat hemorrhage caused by this on August 26th of 1930 in Los Angeles. His funeral was held 2 days later in Glendale, California. Honorary pallbearers included Paul Byrne, Hunt Stromberg, Irving Thalberg, Louis B. Mayer, Lionel Barrymore, Wallace Beery, Todd Browning, Lou Cody, and Ramon Navarro. Obviously, these are some of the biggest names in Hollywood at the time. The Marine Corps provided a chaplain and honor guard for his funeral, which was very unexpected at that time. I don't think Cheney served in the military, but he was that much respected. While his funeral was being conducted, all of MGM studios and offices closed and observed for 2 minutes of silence. So clearly this man was greatly admired and appreciated by his peers in his era. Imagine Hollywood shutting down all their sets and offices down for anybody today. It's not going to happen. it's just not. Cheney became so significant to our effects design community that he became, I quote, the authority on the art of makeup, helping everyone from Will Rogers to Jack Dempsey. He even wrote the makeup entry for the 29th edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica. And we basically can't have a discussion of makeup effects artists without naming him as the forefather of the art. I think that's a fair assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Pop Culture Avenger asks, has Cheney's makeup kit ever come up for auction? No, it has not, to my knowledge.
Does anyone know where it is? Is it in a museum somewhere, maybe? Or
I think the Cheney estate still has it. It's either there or it's in the Smithsonian.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the two. But I'm not sure. Because I know it was passed down to his son, Lon Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about talking about Jr., but then I did some more research, and Lon was really not a makeup guy. He was just an actor, Jr. So, we'll talk. That's, what I was going to say, mention next. He was a fine character actor, not a makeup guy. So it's unfair to discuss him here, but we will what I'll do instead is we'll come back to them on a future episode and just talk about the Cheney influence on horror films as the duo in a later retrospective is what I'll do with them. I think that's more fair with those guys. Yeah, it should be. I think it is in the Smithsonian, Pop. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive. Okay. Whoops, wrong button. My next choice was Jack Pierce, born May 5th, 1889, passed away July 19th, 1968. Legendary monster maker and makeup effects artist for Universal Pictures from the 1930s to the 1960s. Best known for Dracula, uncredited. Technically, he did do the makeup on Bela Lugosi for Dracula, but Bela Lugosi, like Lon Chaney, came from stage. He preferred his own makeup.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, officially, they say Bela did his own makeup, but it was kind of both of them. But he definitely did the makeup on Dracula's brides in the movie. Frankenstein, uncredited. He co-designed and did makeup with Boris Karloff for The Monster. White Zombie, 1932. He was credited in that film. He had issues with Lugosi, who wanted again to do his own makeup. This is why Pierce went uncredited in Dracula and only got to do, mostly got to do just the brides and other actors. Invisible Man, 1983, again uncredited. Bride of Frankenstein, he designed Elsa Lanchester's look as the bride. Wolfman, 1941, he designed the Wolfman makeup for Lon Chaney Jr. So, very iconic looks that he's created over the years. This is some of the looks. These are the brides he did for the 31 picture for Todd Browning's Dracula. He started out as a Greek immigrant who was a minor league baseball prospect in the Chicago area, who washed out of the league and later moved out to California. He embarked on his jobs in cinema manager, stuntman, actor, even assistant director, which eventually would lead to his mastery of the field of makeup and design. The small-statured Pierce was never a leading man type. That's why he never really managed to get anywhere with the stuntman and acting side of it. And so he put his performing career aside to specialize in makeup for other performers. In 1915, he was hired on crews for studio productions. On the 26th set of The Monkey Talks, Jack Pierce created the makeup for actor Jacques Lanier, who was playing a simian with the ability to communicate. The head of Universal, Carl Lamy, was won over with the creative outcome. Next came the rictus grin face of Conrad Veidt in The Man Who Laughs in the Solid Picture from 1928, which led to the first talkie film Dracula from 1931. Again, like I said, Pierce and Bela Lugosi did not get along, and Pierce was mostly set off to handle the secondary cast as a result. And Lugosi would become a constant thorn in Pierce's side as a result. Pierce would have a much more easier and pleasurable collaboration with Boris Karloff. They made Frankenstein's monster. And this gave Pierce a lot more leeway with Lugosi in later films. Pierce would go on, like I say, to oversee the creation of roughly 80% of Universal's movie monsters: Claude Rains' Invisible Man, Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman, Boris Karloff's Mummy, and again, Lanchester's Bride of Frankenstein. All of these are of Pierce's designs. Lugosi would patch up things with Pierce when Pierce brought Lugosi's career a watershed character in Igor in Son of Frankenstein in 1939. Conceived as a man who couldn't be hanged, the bearded, gnarled-toothed wretch became Lugosi's most original character in years and put Lugosi back on the map as an actor. And that basically, rekindled and ended their feud. The final original Pierce makeup arrived in 1943 with the Phantom of the Opera with Claude Rains. It would be the only Jack Pierce monster movie shot in color, though his treatment of Rains' makeup, revealed only at the very end of the film, was cut down at the request of the producers because Pierce's original concept was considered too hideous. It was actually more hideous than Cheney's version, and it stands out as another horror movie landmark. Sadly, at the end of World War II, Universal cut ties with Pierce after a company merger with International Pictures, and he spent the most of the next 20 years of his career working in relative obscurity, with his most famous work being the makeup director on the TV series Mr. Ed from 1961 to 1964. He died almost as a forgotten soul in 1968, which is tragic for such a legend in our business. Thoughts on Pierce?
So, there's a lot of very well-known, I think you used the word iconic, which I think fits a lot of the characters that he created, because those Universal monsters, they still hold up. They are, there's a reason that filmmakers today hold those Universal monsters up as, examples of what they're trying to do. Yes, and they did they're fantastic makeups. I could gush, but it's really what it is. They're absolutely fantastic. I did not realize that he had worked on Mr. Ed though. That was new information for me.
Yeah, that it's weird. The only Universal monster he's not credited with is the Monster of Black Lagoon. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's not really a makeup so much as a mask.
Right.
It's worn over. So it's a different type of setup with that. But it's weird that someone with as much input as he had was dismissed in the manner that he was. Mm-hmm. Again, like I say, it's a shame that he kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Right. Yeah. And Hollywood's a fickle mistress. You can be on top one day, and the next day it's who are you again?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. Our next guest, our mentioned on the list, is William J. Tubman, born April 13th, 1912, and he was with us until July 27th, 2007. Legendary makeup artist whose career spanned 7 decades, he was the first makeup artist to ever receive any kind of Oscar before there was even an Oscar category for makeup effects. He was best known for The Wizard of Oz. He was an assistant makeup artist on that in 1939. Forbidden Planet, 1956. The Time Machine in 1960. The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao, 1964. That's the movie he won the Oscar for. Young Frankenstein in 1974. Logan's Run in 1976. The Twilight Zone episodes. Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. The Monster on the Wing. We're really freaking out. The Masks, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Lit Steel, which was actually remade into the movie. Was it Raw Steel with what's the actor's name that plays? Who's the actor that plays Wolverine?
Oh, Hugh Jackman. Yeah, Real Steel. Real Steel.
Yeah,
Real Steel.
Yeah, that was remade into the movie Real Steel with Hugh Jackman, and then Eye of the Beholder as well. These are just this is just a small sampling of his works that he's contributed to. His career started in 1934. He became an apprentice to Jack Dawn, who was the head of makeup at 20th Century Fox Pictures. 7 months later, when 20th Century closed down for the summer in 1934, he went to MGM to continue his apprenticeship. Fox hired him as a makeup artist after seeing the work he had done at MGM. He worked for 3 films for Fox before returning to MGM, and then made MGM his home for 35 years. For 8 years, he worked as an assistant to Jack Dawn, by then the head makeup artist at MGM. And after Jack retired, he became the head of the makeup department for over 20 years. Tuttle and Charles H. Schramm both worked on a time machine in 1960. Bill had taken a trip to the San Diego Zoo and gotten the idea to use the fur of an East African species of monkey for the fur of the Murlocs. The masks he designed for this movie would also be reused in the classic Twilight episode, Eye of the Beholder. If that's the episode where the woman wants to get her face made up because she's ugly.
Right.
And then they take the mask off and she's beautiful, but everybody else has their masks on. And they're like, oh, you're grotesque. Yeah. He also did the designs for the Twilight episode Mask, which is the episode where the eccentric rich guy is dying and he tells all his relatives, you have to wear these masks for X amount of time, or you won't get your inheritance. And after he dies, okay, we'll take the masks off, only the masks have warped their faces into the shape of the masks.
And it was their true
vices,
like their true identities coming out. Yes.
Right, coming out through the masks, exactly. Tuttle would also become the makeup effects teacher at University of Southern California Film School, and has created his own line of cosmetic custom color cosmetics. His major legacy other than this is to be the first makeup artist to receive any other kind of Oscar, so he has to make this list. And that is because he did 7 different makeups for Tony Randall in the role. He had 7 roles in that film. 7 faces of Dr. Lau, and I just did 2 of them, Medusa and Dr. Lau, here side by side. That's both Tony Randall.
Yep.
These are the Morlock designs from the Warlock from the Time Machine, and of course the Gremlin from Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. Which these are awesome, all of them.
Right.
And
we really didn't go into it too much here, but the Wizard of Oz. I noticed he worked on the Wizard of Oz, which is
exactly
one of the early special effects and visual effects, and a lot of good stuff there. Also, the Forbidden.
The reason I didn't bring up Wizard of Oz is because he was like a backup guy on that one. But certainly he does. We should not dismiss it by any means.
Because that is, and as projects go, that's a biggie.
Yeah.
But
definitely, yes, he is. Like I said, when he created the cosmetics line as well. Like I said, that was one of the key cosmetic lines of the 70s that was used in Hollywood across the entire spectrum. Not just in America, but it actually was used overseas in Japan, in Japanese cinema as well. So he was very influential in makeup effects all throughout into the 70s and 80s, into what we call now the modern. I guess we're getting to the modern era. Yeah,
and those Twilight Zone episodes too that he's involved with. Those are some of the ones that are the most remembered.
Yeah,
certainly the Eye of the Beholder and 20,000 Feet. Those 2 are especially remembered by most people because of their twists, And so those are really, they're standout episodes of an amazing series that there's not a lot of duds in there.
No, definitely not. And he actually did. He also did Outer Limits and Night Gallery as well.
Mhm.
So he had a lot of influence. Like I said, he worked. I don't think he retired until like 92. So he was like I said, as far as working full time, and then he was still an advisor up until 2000s. He had he had from like 1934 until 2006. I think he was active in the business. So I guess it's about 7 decades. So certainly one of the key people in Hollywood in that
Absolutely
division. Okay, our next special effects artist is John Chambers, born September 12th, 1922, and passed away August 25th, 2001. Makeup effects artist whose work was so good the CIA hired him to specialize in making masks for their operatives in the field. He's the second artist in history to receive an honorary Oscar for makeup effects behind Tuttle. He's best known for designing the Planet of the Apes simians, notably Dr. Cornelius, as played by Roddy McDowall, and Zayas, as played by Maurice Evans. He did some of the special effects in Jaws. He was uncredited for that.
Mhm.
And he did a lot of the creature effects for the Island of Dr. Moreau in 1977. He also did a lot more than this, but these are like some of the key things people were going to remember him for. He's an interesting character, to say the least. I'm not sure if what's more important about him is his special effects and what his makeup history has to do with filmmaking or the work he did for the CIA. In the late 1970s, he worked as a contractor for the CIA, creating disguise kits for CIA personnel stationed in other countries. Some of his work can be seen in the International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. But even more historically important is in 1980, Chambers was enlisted by CIA officer Tony Mendez to work on the Canadian Caper, the rescue of 6 American embassy personnel who hid at the residence of the Canadian ambassador during the Iran hostage crisis. Chambers set up a fake movie and production company as a cover story of a film crew planning to shoot a science fiction film titled Argo in Iran. To make the cover believable, Chambers used actor Michael Douglas's former office during the filming of The China Syndrome in 1979, Sunset Glover Studios. Chambers and Mendez printed fake business cards, held a film press party at a nightclub in Los Angeles, and took out advertisements in Variety and the Hollywood Reporter magazines. Fellow makeup artist Robert Seidel and Seidel's wife Andy assisted in the hoax. Andy posed as a receptionist of their fake production company. The rescue effort was successful, and Chambers was awarded the CIA's Intelligence Medal of Merit, but he was required to keep his involvement a secret until the story was declassified in 1997. This was such an important event that the 2012 Academy Award Best Picture Award winning film Argo was based on this. Chambers was portrayed by John Goodman. From makeup legend to real life lead of an Academy Award Best Picture based on his life, we can't overlook him.
Right.
We just can't.
What's amazing about the Argo story too is all the people that they pulled in, because with our comics background, the fact that Jack Kirby was brought in to storyboard the fake movie or to do character designs for the fake movie, they really went all out. But also the fascinating part about the spy, the kits, we had seen stuff like that in media in fiction before, like with Mission Impossible. Roland Hand, played by Martin Landau, was always doing stuff like that. So it's kind of one of those things where real life was kind of imitating or learning from what they were doing on TV.
Right.
And there was some fantastic, and Martin Landau was one of those guys too that came from the theater, so would do a lot of his own makeup on the show.
Right.
And there's one in particular, just as a quick aside, that I find when we're talking about makeup, I was going to just mention it later, but since we're talking about that now, there's an episode of Mission Impossible where he has disguised himself as an old man, and they're in a church. I believe it's a funeral scene, but anyways, the bad guy is up on the dais talking to the crowd, And so it's a big crowd in this church or auditorium or whatever they're in. But every so often, as the camera passes over Martin Landau, you see him do this, and he pulls a piece of the costume off, or he reaches up and does this, and it's very subtle to where he transforms himself into, an old man into young Martin Landau,
Right.
in front of everybody, and nobody notices. And it's the way they shot it was just absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And
ironically, Chambers did actually work on I Spy and Mission Impossible as well.
Yeah. So that does not surprise me. So, but yeah, fantastic how they, like I said, it's one of those things where art or life imitated art, in coming up with those things. And I mean, I'm assuming you've seen the movie Argo. It's a fascinating movie.
Yes, it is. It's very deserving of the Academy Award for Best Picture when it won in 2012. And, at first, when I first saw that, I was like, did they make this up? Was this? I don't remember this. I mean, obviously it was classified in these, but it was just like, no. You almost had to go back and read about it, and find the documentation, all this stuff, and kind of, okay, this actually did happen. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember it. There was a point in the 90s. Right, like not long before he died, where Jack Kirby was interviewed and mentioned something in an interview about doing storyboards for the CIA. Because I guess by then it had been declassified or whatever, or it was something. And I always thought that was weird, but you never could find all the details about it. And then when the movie comes out and there's somebody playing him, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. Okay, I remember hearing about this.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, again, it was just that was a whole kit and caboodle wax thing with Jack too. I mean, because it's funny because the reason Jack was brought in was because of the connection with him working at Marvel on Planet of the Apes.
Plus, this was at the time too. I believe he was also doing work in addition to doing comics. He was doing.
He was left. He had left comics behind and was in Hollywood.
He was doing stuff for like Hanna-Barbera and places. And
so he was working for Ruby Spears Studios.
Yeah,
Thundar and stuff like that. But I think he did Thundar and Turbo Teen and stuff like that. But no, what I meant was the reason Chambers thought of him was because of the connection with them both having connection with Planet of the Apes. That's what I was getting at.
Oh, very nice. Another one of those makeup jobs too. Those Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, actually, get to the picture here on that. There we go. Yeah. We actually get to see Chambers cutting Roddy McDowell's hair and the actual step-by-step process of making the snout, so to speak, and doing it there.
Yeah, and those are fantastic. Those were fantastic looking, looking makeup, and because McDowell's in 5 of those movies and TV show, and plus he would appear in other things. I remember seeing him on Carol Burnett once.
Yep, he was on
in
Carol
makeup.
Yep. That was crazy. I was tempted to put that up there, but I was like, yeah. Let's get serious. Our next guest on our list here is Stan Winston, which I don't know why he's next. He shouldn't be. Let me check my list here. For some reason, he should not be on the list yet. Should be Rick Baker should be next. I'm wondering what that is about. Let me look that real quick. That's interesting. Okay. Give me a second.
No problem. Yeah, Rick Baker, also a guy who is quite known for doing ape makeup.
Yeah.
And
somehow my Rick Baker stuff is not all here. That's okay. I'll put as much as I can up there.
Okay.
Get it in there. Just have to.
It's the joys of live broadcasting.
Yes, it is. Let's see. Yeah, what's annoying here is there's a whole thing missing that I can't bring back. So I guess we just got to do what we can.
Okay.
But we'll do with what we can. All right. There we go. Rick Baker. December 8th, 1850, and he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
First one who was actually still alive and still with us. Special effects makeup artist, actor, the first official Academy Award recipient for special effects makeup. Has received the most nominations and won the most time since the category for best special effects makeup category's inception. Best known for King Kong. He was actually in the costume and made the costume for the 1976 film. An American Werewolf in London from 81. That is the first Academy Award in the category for special effects makeup. He did the Werecat and the Michael Jackson as a zombie makeup for Thriller, the 83 Jackson video. He created Harry for Harry and the Hendersons in 87, won the Oscar for that. He designed the Beast for the TV series Beauty and the Beast from 87 to 89. He designed the design for Bela Lugosi, played by Martin Landau, for Ed Wood in 1994, won the Oscar for that. And he did the aliens and special effects and alien makeup for Men in Black in 97 and won the Oscar for that. Rick Baker started out as a special effects creator. As a teen, he began creating artificial body parts in his own kitchen. His first professional job was an assistant to prosthetic makeup effects veteran Dick Smith on the 1973 film The Exorcist. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not, actually.
While working on Exorcist, Baker was hired by director Larry Cohen to design and create a mutant infant for Cohen's 1974 film It's Alive. This quickly snowballed into Baker being brought into other movies as a second unit special effects teamster, notably on Star Wars, which is also how another person on his list got in because this person became one of Rick Baker's assistants. Baker received the inaugural Academy Award Best Makeup for his work on American Werewolf in London. He also created the werewolf creature, or rare cat creature that, like I said, in Thriller. He would go on to be nominated for the Academy Award an additional 10 times, winning on 7 occasions, making him the most awarded makeup artist in history. He retired in 2015, saying, first of all, CG stuff definitely took away the animatronic part of what I do, and it's also starting to take away the makeup part. The time is right. I am 64 years old, and because business is crazy right now. If I like to do things right, and they want cheap and fast. That is not what I want to do. So I just decided it is basically time to get out. I would consider designing and consulting on some things, but I don't think I will have a huge working studio anymore. Can't say as I blame him, and it's not like he has anything left to prove in this business. True.
Yeah, I mean, the man's body of work does speak for itself, and yeah.
Unfortunately, I wanted to show the Werecat and some other stuff, but that camera, somehow that image never got finalized. But I can show some of the American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also find it's kind of fascinating too that as we've, he says there with CG and all, taking, replacing some of the things that they did. I do find that it has become a thing that doing it the old fashioned way is kind of become a special thing for certain projects, and that some of these guys are doing it just because they can. And it's
well, here's the thing, it's not, sometimes doing it the old fashioned way is more realistic than doing it in the computer. And you have to realize that budget has to be done and utilized to the best effect that you want for your film.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of producers and movies executives don't care. They just want the cheap, period.
Right.
And that's why a lot of the films today look cheap.
Yeah.
And they don't look good as a result.
Because I noticed, because I worked on Creepshow, the TV version that's on Shudder, and I know they're doing a lot of practical and animatronics. Like the Creep is all animatronic, and because I got to see the Creep and I got to watch them,
operate them,
do things with the thank you, that was the word I was looking for. So there's a lot of stuff there. Now, I mean, they still use CG and stuff as well, but I know that's one of their things, is because the people in charge of that show started out as as makeup and FX guys,
They're diehard.
Right, because like Greg Nicotero runs that show, and I mean that's what he was before he got into directing and writing and all that. He was doing effects and stuff like that and makeup, and so him and his crew, that's their thing. They really love doing that, and it shows. You can see in being on set and watching them work, how much fun they have doing that. Right.
Okay, well, we're going to take one quick look at Rick's work, American Werewolf in London, of course. This is the very beginning, not the very beginning, but about sort of the early part of of David's transformation scene into the werewolf. It is the best werewolf transformation scene put to film to date, in my opinion. Still shots do not do it justice. You do have to go see it online or get the copy of the film and watch it. That being said, I will take you to the second best shortly. Another excellent shot is of actor Griffin Dunn. And I had to put the word balloon. It says, "Thanks, Dave." No, really. I hear the ripped out jugular is making a comeback in all the fashion mags this season.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that transformation scene. It's one, especially seeing it the first time, it was definitely new. It was not something we had never seen that kind of.
But that's where the hang up comes in. That's where the hang up comes in. And when we get to one of the next people down the list a little bit, we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm just talking about for me. When I saw that, I had never seen that type of thing, because before I had seen, there had been werewolf movies, but a lot of it was you could see the freeze frame, and then you come back, it was a little choppy. So seeing it here, where you see the hair coming out of his body and and so for me, when I first saw it, it was so I believed it because it was so realistic,
and the elongation of the arm and the paws.
Yeah, so I totally was blown away by it when I first saw it.
Right. Okay, well, Rick was supposed to come before Stan. Now we got the Stan. Stan Winston, April 7th, 1946 to June 15th, 2008. Special effects, makeup effects, and CGI creator, studio runner, and teacher. Best known for one co-design on The Thing, which is probably one of the most memorable elements of The Thing, but we'll get to that in a moment. He designed The Terminator and worked on its sequels. He designed the Mr. Roboto face mask design for the rock band Styx in '83. He designed the Aliens stuff for the movie Aliens, for James Cameron's Aliens. That includes the I'm trying to think of it, the hard armor driver that Ripley uses to fight the Queen.
Yep.
Okay, that he designed that. He designed 2 or 3 other major elements in there that were different from what Ridley Scott's other people did in the first film. So that's
well,
that.
Yeah. Well, he designed the Queen as well, because and
Predator. He designed the Predator, and he also worked on Predator 2. He designed the aliens for Alien Nation. He designed Edward Scissorhands with V. Neal. He was also involved in Jurassic Park and its sequels. He did all the special effects and started a lot of the CGI stuff for Titanic with James Cameron. And he also worked on Steven Spielberg's AI, Artificial Intelligence. That's just some of the stuff he did.
and my God, that's a list of like that's a list of a lot of people's. What's your top 10 movies? Over half of them are probably off that list.
Yeah, right there you go. Stan Winston was a major force to be reckoned with right out of the gate. Graduating with a degree in painting and sculpture from the University of Virginia in Charlottesville in 1968 and moving to California in 1969, attending California State University at Long Beach, Winston moved to Hollywood to pursue a career as what? An actor. Struggling to find an acting job, though, because he just wasn't good looking enough. He began an makeup apprenticeship at all places, Walt Disney Studios, in 1970. By 1972, however, he had already launched his own special effects makeup studio, Stan Winston Studio, and in 1973 he won his first Emmy Award for his effects work on the 1974 television film Gargoyles. Over the next 7 years, he continued to receive Emmy Award nominations for work and projects and won another one for his 1974 work on the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. He also created the Wookiee costumes for the 78 Star Wars Holiday Special, which I'm sure everybody would love for him to forget, but I had to bring it up. And he was the special up makeup designer for The Wiz in 78 as well. In 82, he received his first Oscar nomination for Heart Beeps. However, it was his groundbreaking work with Rob Bottin, who we will talk about just next, probably. I think he's next on the list. With John Carpenter's update of the science fiction horror film classic The Thing, that brought him to national prominence and prominence in Hollywood. He did The Dog with Rob. They designed the dog, shape-shifting dog monster. Most everything else that you see in The Thing is actually Rob, but everybody thinks that Stan Winston was the guy who was the head. It was actually Rob who was the head.
Yeah, it was Rob Bottin did that, yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm going to get, when we talk to Rob, we're going to talk a lot about that. But anyway, he also supervised visual effects works on the classic horror film The Entity with Barbara Bach, which was the invisible ghost that raped the lead female story. Very spooky, dark, nasty movie. Between those two films, he contributed visual effects to Friday the 13th Part 3, in which he made a slightly different head sculpt of Jason for an unused ending, which you can see in the later master editions or whatever. They've added it so that you guys can see it. In 83, he did design, as I said, the Mr. Roboto face mask for the American rock group Styx for their album and rock video, which, of course, has become a cult classic and signature for the band. But then, of course, came 84 and The Terminator. That, of course, was like the catapult that really shot him to the stratosphere. Creating the metallic killing machine, and that led to many new projects, of course, all the different Cameron collaborations that he did with James Cameron, including his first Academy Award for Best Visual Effects in 86 for Aliens. And here's one of those effects where Bishop is torn in half by the Queen or whatever, and there he is with half of his android got spilled. And he's still there alive. And he's like, yay, you got to do something. Over the next few years, Winston and his company received more accolades for his work on many more films, including Edward Scissorhands and, of course, Predator, Alienation, and Predator 2, all by John McTiernan. Winston made his directorial debut with the horror movie Pumpkinhead, which is a classic cult film as well, and he won Best First-Time Director at the Paris Film Festival for that film. Of course, he was then brought back for Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and that won him 2 more Academy Awards, Best Makeup and Visual Effects. Then he did Danny DeVito's Penguin and the robotic cyberpunk penguins in Batman Returns. and was nominated again for Academy Award for that film in Batman Returns. There's his Winston design. This is the second design actually for Predator. For those who don't know, there's actually a different design. The first design, the Predator had a duck face, and try to imagine. Try to imagine a giant Daffy Duck type alien face that's orange with weird spots on it and everything. And the funny part is Jean-Claude Van Damme was supposed to be cast as the Predator.
I think he actually was cast and left.
That might be.
Yeah, like there is video, I think, of them doing like a little bit at the beginning and it just not working.
Yeah, the thing is such a good film. Yes, it is.
Yes.
And so there we go. We're going to go back here. Again, this would, so he had to go back and redesign this design for the second Predator design. Spielberg would then, of course, tap Winston for Jurassic Park in '93, and that would, launch a whole nother stratosphere of success for him. And this would lead him, James Cameron, and ex-ILM manager Scott Ross to co-found Digital Domain, which is a new computer and animatronic CGI FX company in '93. There he would remain for the next 5 years until he stepped down from the board of directors after Titanic. Winston and his team would continue to provide effect works for many more films and expanded their work into animatronics. Some of Winston's more notable animatronics work elsewhere can be found in The Ghost in the Darkness and T2 3D Battle Across Time, which is James Cameron's 3D continuation of the Terminator series for the Universal Studios theme parks.
I've seen that.
One of Winston's most ambitious projects for animatronics, however, was Steven Spielberg's AI Artificial Intelligence, which, of course, received him yet another Oscar nomination. That was an excellent movie. In its own right. There's this is an actual painting by Winston for Jurassic Park that he did. Throughout all of this, he kept Stan Winston Studios as a teaching studio as well as a full operation studio in connection with Digital Domain and other stuff. Stan Winston official, I guess you could say. His influence as a teacher has held sway over more than 850 men and women in makeup effects, animatronics, and CGI visual effects over the past 35 years, making him possibly the most direct, hands-on, influential makeup artist effects in history. Rick Baker would be the only other guy who might come close, and to be fair, it would be a much more indirect nature, not hands-on teaching as Stan. Winston also worked on Terminator 3, Jurassic World, and at the time of his death was also working on Terminator Salvation. He was working on all three of those at the time of his death. He also designed the original monsters that appeared in the Midway video game The Suffering and its sequel to Suffering Ties That Bind. And he also had some input with James Cameron's film Avatar. So, man was busy. So, again, very much.
And not only did the man work on projects that were popular and well known, there's a number of projects when you were throwing up his credits list that were considered game changing. Certainly, Terminator and Terminator 2, or Jurassic Park, Titanic. Those were all movies that
really changed the landscape.
Yeah, new techniques were invented for these movies. Right. That's taking it, that's adding something to film as a whole, because as you know, the CG, because CG was still a fairly new thing when Terminator 2 came out. That was, but because of what they were able to do in that movie, it became a bigger and bigger part of movies. And it's one of those things you have to.
But here's the thing: Terminator in '84, that was actually all stop animation.
Mm-hmm. Right, but Terminator
That's
2, right, but Terminator 2 is the first with the CG person.
Ah, right. Okay.
You know, with the T-1000 or the
Right,
the
right.
Robert Patrick. You know,
Right.
and it's one of those things too because I remember before the movie came out, and I remember hearing this quite a bit before Jurassic Park came out. There, the people that's like, is it going to, because they're doing this stuff on the computer, is it going to work?
Right.
Because up to that point, what we had seen with computer generated images were not lifelike. They were stuff we saw in computer games that was not lifelike at the time. And so the fact that they were able to do these things successfully and they worked led to that, like had it not worked, it may have slowed down the advance of, CG because
not just CG, it would completely change the landscape of Hollywood and the computer industry because the success of those films completely changed how Adobe and how all these different computer graphics companies developed things. Because now there's a demand. So they had to start snapping up, ramping up their things and development to get that stuff done so that they had enough. And then computer companies had to make more Intel chips and stuff like that would have better memory and everything and better processing speeds to handle this kind of workload. So without that stuff, we might be back 15 or 20 years in computer technology. Well,
right. Because not only did it impact movies, look at video games. What happened with video games as a result, or I mean, any number of things. But yeah, but there are a few, throughout history where to do the movie they want to do, they have to they invent something. I mean, Star Wars is another good example where a lot of things were invented. Because we want to do this, and they're like, we don't know how to do that. It's like, well, let's figure it out. And some of these guys that are on this list were the guys that were being said, figure it out and tell us how. And
we will get back to that in just a second. But after Winston's death, his 4 supervisors at Stan Winston Studio, Shane Mahan, John Rosengrant, Alan Scott, and Lindsay, McGowan, founded and built their own studio, Legacy FX, which you may have heard of, named to honor his memory. Stan Winston Studios became a Stan Winston School of Character Arts to preserve Stan's legacy by inspiring and fostering creativity for a new generation of character creators. Of course, I would say the Terminator is arguably his most popular creation, but I got 2 there of the shots there for the Terminator there, so people can see that. What other character would you say is as popular as the Terminator for him?
Well, yeah, definitely. I would say the Terminator tops the list. I would say Predator's probably. Yeah, I would put Predator on there.
Yeah, Predator. It'd have to be Predator to be his next one. Yeah,
because that is whether you have watched those movies or not, people know what the Predator is.
Yeah,
just like whether you watch Terminator or not, what the Terminator is when you see it.
Yeah,
and so I would say probably those. And then I would say the T-Rex would hit that list somewhere too.
Yeah, okay.
Because the T-Rex was that man, because Jurassic Park, if the T-Rex hadn't
worked
and looked right, that was the big thing for that movie. And whether all the other dinosaurs look good or not, everybody was like, what's the T-Rex going to look like? And so the fact that they were able to do it with the CG and the practical, because they did build the head, because when it crashes through the top of the car trying to eat the kids, that's a real piece, and so the fact that it looked so good and looked so real, I mean, that took this from this is a cool action movie to holy shit, dinosaurs. And so I would say that the T-Rex would have to fall somewhere on that list as well.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I would say that would be your top 3 in some. Yeah, That's fair. Okay.
Right, because most of the stuff he did for things like he did a lot of work on Titanic, but that's one of those things people don't think about because it's not a monster or
Right.
it's not
It's different kinds of special effects.
Right.
But I mean, Winston did some beautiful stuff on The Abyss too.
Yeah.
And again, but name the effect on The Abyss? It's gonna what do you call those creatures? You don't even remember.
Right. I just remember. Yeah, I remember the little water thing that looked like the face.
Yeah.
Really, that's the big part I remember.
Yep, that's it. Yeah. So anyway, speaking of Rob Bottin, here we are.
Yes.
April 1st, 1959, still alive. One of Rick Baker's early proteges, Bottin became well known for in his own right, breaking out as a special effects quote unquote genius. That's what people used to call him. Awarded a Special Achievement Award at the 1991 Academy Awards. He has received other various awards as well. Best known for The Howling 1982, where he did a werewolf transformation scene similar to Baker's Oscar award-winning American Werewolf London, only he shot it and it was released 5 months earlier. And this has created one of Hollywood history's greatest feuds. The Thing, like I said, he was the actual lead guy on The Thing, not Stan Winston, although Stan Winston seems to get most of the credit for that for some reason. There's other films as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Rob is an enigma. He stands 6'5", and he's like the Chewbacca special effects guys to Stan or Rick Baker's Han Solo, even though he is the actual special effects director or supervisor on films. Starting out at the tender age of 14 as an assistant to Rick Baker, Bottin apprenticed and worked under Baker for 6 years, working quietly under Baker on a number of projects, including appearing as a Talos Cantina band player in Star Wars, because Baker and Bottin were actually second cast crew on Star Wars doing makeup effects for the Mos Eisley Cantina scene. But, of course, he did his first big Rick film, The Howling, in 81. This did cause the rift between the pairs. Bottin film was screened 5 months before Baker's and had a similar werewolf transformation scene. But Baker not only got the nomination, but actually won the very first Academy Award for the effect. Bottin felt that it should have gone to him since his came out first, and they were so similar. But the Academy probably gave it to Baker due to Baker's longevity in the business. No one really knows what happened there, but it caused such a rift for them that they didn't talk to each other for about 11 years. Bottin's next big hit was Carpenter's remake of the 51 classic movie, The Thing, from another word simply titled The Thing, from 82. We've already talked about that briefly, but Bottin oversaw all of the special effects and design, save for one, which was the dog mutation, which I said was Bottin with Stan Winston. So, of course, like I said, that's one of the most talked about scenes in the movie where the dog is transformed into that weird amalgamation. And that is, thus Winston gets a lot of overhype for the movie's success and visual effects overall that rightfully should belong to Bottin. Unfortunately, this film was a box office bust for a number of reasons. My guess is because in 82, nobody wanted an alien horror movie because E.T. Phone Home was out at the time, and that was a much nicer film. But it did end up as a cult classic on video later on. Bottin worked so tirelessly on this film, however, he wound up hospitalized from exhaustion and pneumonia. Bottin would finally receive proper acknowledgement for his incredible talents in the form of an Academy Award for his makeup effects for the film Legend in 1985, for his makeup for Tim Curry's Darkness and Mia Sara's Dark Lily characters. That's the film with Tom Cruise. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Bottin would also go on to have a good working relationship with Paul Verhoeven on the RoboCop franchise. He created RoboCop and the Total Recall series with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the latter of which would earn him a Special Academy Achievement Award in 91. V. Neal and Stan Winston won the Academy Award for Best Makeup that year for Edward Scissorhands. Total Recall was not even nominated in 90 or 91. This was likely the Academy's way of apologizing to Bottin for not recognizing him a decade earlier for The Howling. That is the undercurrent consensus viewpoint. Botten remained active in the business until his retirement in 2014. Of course, he never reached the same accolades as Baker or Winston, but this is likely because his bad experience with Baker getting credit over him early on soured him on the idea of forming his own full studio and mentoring others so that he could take on the massive projects that Baker and Winston were capable of doing due to the manpower they had in their studios. As such, Botten is still a legend of the business, but he's more like a Jim Shooter. He's like the Jim Shooter of special effects and makeup.
There's an analogy I never would have expected to hear, but yeah, I guess that works.
Well, it does, because Jim was 13 and Rob was 14, and they became top guys and got kind of pushed aside by other people, and then they went and did their own things, but they never really got in the spotlight again. That's kind of what I kind of looked at it as. And this is Rob doing a sculpture from The Thing. And this is the transformational effect, early transformational effect from The Howling. You can see how similar this is to what Baker did. And then these are some of the stuff from Total Recall. I mean, look at that. I mean, the split face for the woman and that whole thing, that was awesome.
Yep. That's one of the most known scenes from that, because it was in all the commercials with the, get ready for a surprise.
Yep.
And it's one of those things too, you mentioned, because a lot of people don't remember that The Thing, was kind of a bomb when it came out. But that's one of those movies that I think the advent of home video and Blockbuster going to rent movies and cable TV helped, because The Thing was a staple of Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon on HBO or USA or whatever. And because as a kid, me and my cousins, we would, we'd have Sunday dinner at my grandmother's, and after dinner, we'd all pile in front of the TV because there was always a cool movie like this on Sunday afternoon. And that's where I discovered a lot of what have become my favorite movies that were, came out before I could go to the theater and see them, was through that. And I fell in love with that movie, The Thing, when it came out. It's it's easily in my top 10 movies of all time. Wow. And fantastic movie. It made me seek out the original, The Thing from Another World. I like that version as well.
It's a different movie, though. I mean, it's a different movie. The Thing from a Different World is much more Hitchcockian suspense, whereas The Thing is more. The Thing has more in common with Ridley Scott's Alien.
Well, it's a lot more horror. I mean, it's a lot more of that. Plus, of the era that it's in, there's a lot of mistrust.
Yeah.
Because that really was the era of, do we know who our neighbors are? And, there are spies everywhere, and who's listening, who's lurking, that kind of thing. It was a big Cold War era. Yeah. And putting that into the narrative of the movie, there's a bit where, like Kurt Russell says that, like I can't trust anybody, or I don't know who to trust anymore. Or, we can't trust anybody here. And that permeates it, because the way it's shot, their characters are giving little looks or doing things that makes you go, aha, and then, because you just don't know. So we as the audience start to feel that paranoia come through what they're doing. And I got to say,
that's Carpenter just being smart.
Yeah. The scene on the couch, where they're on the couch and he's testing the blood, and then, the Thing is revealed and they're all tied to the couch, is just terrifying. Yeah. That is a terrifying image. Yeah. And then the other one, that really stands out is the bit where, the doc's trying to, revive the guy, and this belly opens up and cuts his arms off, and the head with the lobster feet, that's the stuff that, and that's probably the signature Rob Bottin special effect, is the head.
Yeah,
crab head scampering off upside down.
Yes, I was tempted to put that feature because if you Google Rob Bottin, you will see a picture of him standing there with it over his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a cool one, but
yeah, that's probably the effects that people remember most from that movie. And then, like I said, the helmet that Arnold wears there in Total Recall is, yeah.
Okay, our last guy is David B. Miller. Birth date not listed on IMDb, but given his credits, we're gonna estimate he was born between 1955 and 1960. He is still alive today. Special effects, makeup, and actor. Best known for designing Freddy Krueger for the Nightmare on Elm Street series. He worked on Terminator as a technical design and special effects after following Stan Winston's lead. He did the zombie designs and makeup for the dancers, whereas Rick Baker did Jackson's Werecat and zombie effects for Michael Jackson's Thriller video. He did the modern Addams Family makeup effects and did the Thing effects, the hand, walking hands effects and all that stuff as well, among other things that he's known for. Obviously, his biggest claim to fame is the creation of the Freddy Krueger character visual design for the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. He's done work for dozens of other films, mostly as a second unit or backup artist to the lead designer, Winston or Baker most often, oftentimes going uncredited as a result. Again, see the Thriller video. Baker gets all the credit, but Baker only did Michael Jackson's makeup, and he did Vincent Price's zombie makeup at the end of the video. I don't know if you guys know this, but the last zombie you see in the video with the really sort of weird female wig video ghoulish thing at the end, that's Vincent Price. That was done by Baker, but everything else, all the dancers, everything else makeup was actually Miller. Baker's studio would go on to be the original design effects studio for Joss Whedon's Angel series for season 1 and the very first episode of season 2 before moving on to other projects. But somewhat like Rob Bottin, he just gets overshadowed by Baker and Winston.
Mm-hmm.
This is Night of the Creeps. He was known for in 86. And then, of course, him working on Krueger. Not much else to add with David, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with him as I am with the others. And
yeah, like I said, he just gets overshadowed because, like I said, he being a second unit guy mostly. I know you've watched Angel before, probably.
Oh yeah.
So all the vampire, all the special effects on Angel for the first season is him.
Okay. And there's quite a lot of monsters and demons in that first season, as I recall.
Yeah. So, he did some nice stuff on that. Like, the effects for Doyle's porcupine demon face.
Yep.
Yeah, that was him, and that was both before and after the spike effect with the CGI, because that was partially CGI.
Yeah.
But
I do remember seasons near. It was in the episode where, spoiler alert for those that hadn't seen it, where Doyle dies. Mm-hmm. That army of demons that comes through, they've got skin stitched to their faces because they don't have skin. Mm-hmm. All those are quite fantastic, and I'm assuming they probably handled those as well.
Yeah,
and those were I remember those as being very kind of very spooky looking, scary looking villains.
Yeah.
So.
But that was all Miller's, and I don't know why Miller left at the end at the beginning of season 1 or season 2, but he did. That was also the group that Glenn Hetrick was part of.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know who Glenn Hetrick is, he was one of the hosts and judges for the Face Off series on Sci-Fi Channel, and you might know him for Optic Nerve. He worked with Optic Nerve Studio on Babylon 5, and he's done other stuff as a special effects guy. He was friends with Miller and worked on Angel as well during that period. I think he did some Buffy stuff as well before going over to Angel. But but this is just like, I don't want to call them the creme de la creme because we haven't talked about Vale. We haven't talked about quite a few other people that it's a wide array, but we have to kind of keep them limited to under 2 hours.
This could be an all-day podcast.
Yeah. But was there anybody I have mentioned that you were thinking of?
Well, no, I mean, like I said, the first two that when you first mentioned doing the list, the first two that popped into my head were Stan Winston and Rob Bottin were the first two I thought of, just because they worked on so many movies that I liked their special effects. There were, those were the first two that popped onto my head. So we had a nice list here. Just because I've watched him work, I would probably add Greg Nicotero to the list. He's done quite a bit since the 80s because he worked on like the Creep Show and I'm going to blank now. He worked on a lot of movies back in the 80s and 90s. He's known now because of The Walking Dead mostly, but
yeah.
But
okay, yeah. All right.
So, but he worked for someone, and kind of like Rob Bottin worked for Baker. He was in that kind of. He worked for people, and then kind of went out. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, right. And so it's a lot of horror movies, a lot of stuff like that. And
well, he didn't just work for Tom Savini. He worked with Robert Kurtzman and Howard Berger. Yeah. So that makes a difference too. So they were really like big in like the late 80s and through like 2000. Didn't they do Chronicles of Narnia?
I'm not sure, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then those were the ones that were on my list, but and so I'm sure if I had spent a little more time researching, I could have come up with more. But
yeah. Well, no, I probably see. We should have probably thought. I should have thought of him. I didn't think of Nicotero. Yeah. And the reason I don't think of Nicotero is because I don't like Walking Dead, probably.
Right, but that's what he's known for. But he's done so much other stuff.
No, that's what he's known for lately.
Lately, yeah, and
he's done so much more than that. That's why I'm saying it's my fault because I should have thought about all the stuff he did well before that. I mean, he's done. Oh, geez. I mean, he did. He did Creepshow 2.
Yep.
Worked on Predator with Winston. He worked on Phantasm 2. He worked on Leatherface.
Yeah. He recently, and one of the things I was really excited about, it wasn't for a movie, but he recently, one of the old Jaws sharks, he refurbished it for the museum and fixed it back up where it had fallen in disrepair.
Right.
He went and refurbished it. So
that had to be a labor of love because the film that got him interested in effects was Jaws.
Yeah. And so he had posted some stuff on social media of him working, doing the work and like I said, he's the guy that runs the Creepshow TV show now. And so I've worked on a couple episodes of that, so I've got to watch him do what he does. And yeah, he is definitely a fan of the horror, creepy kind of genre. He loves that stuff. And, because he didn't direct the first episode I did for Creepshow. He didn't direct it, but he's he's the executive producer, the showrunner. So he's on set, even though he wasn't directing. But I was in the holiday special for this new season, and he directed us in that one, and that was a ton of fun. I was a werewolf killing Santa, carrying a sword. So that was a lot of fun.
That sounds like fun. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we head out for today, I want to share some stuff.
Okay.
I want to let people see Bobby's page.
Yes, me website.
Yes. This is some of the novels you can get. This is at
BobbyNash.com will take you there.
Yeah, BobbyNash.com will take you there. And there, you can see his novels, his novellas, his ebooks, his anthologies, his comics, his audiobooks. You can see his film, television credits, all kinds of stuff.
I keep busy.
Yes. But this is like the most recent stuff.
Yeah, the snow shorts is something we're doing new this year. I've invited a handful of writers to come in and do short stories with my characters from the Snow series.
Okay.
And that's what this particular one that's on the screen now is short number 3. Nicole Givens-Kurtz wrote a thriller with Snow's mother, where someone is stalking her. And it's a really good tight little thriller. And actually, either tomorrow or Sunday, Snow Shorts number 4 will be out, and that's called Snow Ambition. It's written by Brian K. Morris.
Okay. So. And then there's Lance Star Sky Ranger.
Yep. We've done. There's 5, 6 books, 6 Lance Star books out there. Yeah, I did this one as the original idea was James Burns and I had done a comic strip. We were going to do like a bunch of Sundays. And in the process, something happened and we had to cut it short. So I ended up truncating the story. And so I never got to tell the whole story. So one of the things I've been doing with my Patreon page, and I also did this for a pulp site, is did this as a serialized novel where we released a chapter a week. And so I went back and retold the story we did in the strips as a serial, and was able to tell the rest of it. And because we jump over a good chunk of the middle in the strip, and so once it was done, we put it out in book form, and the original strips are added are in the book as well.
Okay. How much are these?
The Lance Star, I think, is $8.
Okay.
The Snow Shorts are 99 cents. Like In the Wind, I think, is $8.99. The Snow books are $7.99.
Okay. Various prices anyway.
Yeah, and ebooks. The ebooks are like $2.99, I think, generally, for that size. So those are like In the Wind and the Snow that I do. Those are novellas. Like 30. Actually, I've got one here. You can see that they're not super thick. And
hold on a second.
And they're about 30,000 words. They're around 170, 180 pages.
Okay.
So not too bad. And so we do. Excuse me. What I do is I put out a few of these a year, and then after I do 3 of these, I collect them. I don't have these. I haven't done 3 of those yet, but we collect them in a bigger book, which is like a normal size. Right. So whichever size people like buying, they can get it. They can get it the way they want it. I try to put them out in as many formats as possible because we do the small book paper books, the collected paper books, the collected getting hardcover. We do ebooks of the single stories. We do ebooks of the collected stories. We do audio books. Mm-hmm. It's a lot, but we.
Again, this is BobbyNash.com. We'll take you there.
Yep. That is my main website, and you can get to anywhere else I am through there. I do have my publishing company that I publish things through is benbooks.com, and that's ben-books.com will get you to that one. And then abrahamsnow.com is the snow site. But like I said, those links are all under the links tab on this site. Yeah. It also takes you to my social media because I'm all over social media. So
there's all kinds of cool stuff here. So
yeah, and see now things like Suicide Bomb or Evil Ways, those are actually full length, 100,000 word, 300 some odd page novels. Okay. So I do like full novels and I do the novella size stuff. So a little.
Yeah, and you do novels by other people's characters, like
I have, yes.
Sanderson of Metro is character The Wraith, which is created by Frank Dershel.
That's right. Yes, yep, I did that. That adapts. They did a 2-issue comic series,
right?
That with the origin, and so I used that 2 issues as the basis of the story, and we filled in the origin and expanded the origin for this. So yeah, that was fun. I've known Frank forever. He and I were both in the first Lance Starr Sky Ranger book, which came out in 2006. So we've known each other that long, and so it was cool to get to work together. Night Vale that you just passed there. The Night Vale, that was we always have that. We all have that one dream gig.
Mm-hmm.
This was mine. I remember reading Night Vale comics when they first came out in the early to mid 80s. I was in high school. So it was mid 80s. I was in high school. And I remember just falling in love with this character because she's a superhero, but a lot of her stories were horror based.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember falling in love with this character. And I remember I had this distinct memory of telling one of my buddies in school that I'm going to write this character one day. And now I tried over the years many times to pitch comic stories to AC with her, to no avail. But it took me 30 years, but I got to write Night Vale comic stories to AC with her. Oop. And so I got to write. So that was one of those dream come true gigs. And then the fact that it won a Pulp Factory Award for Best Novel last year was just icing on the cake. And we're in talks now of doing a second Night Vale novel. So that's awesome. I'm very, very proud. That's one of those, like I said, that's one that's been on the bucket list for a long time.
Yeah, so he's got quite a bit of stuff here, though. I mean,
yeah, Domino Lady I write quite frequently. So yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff to check out there. Make sure you do so. And that being said, I think that we can call it a night.
Woohoo! This was fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh,
I have had a blast.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. I mean, it's just we'll have to come and have you on again when we have some of the other people like Kristen Miracle around, or
absolutely
something like that. Because I wish that Tony McMillan had come on, but he was busy too. I don't know if you've read Strange Creatures. I was a teenage special effects wizard.
I haven't read that one, no.
Okay, Tony did a book called that, Strange Creatures.
Oh.
Yeah, you need to. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Oh, Serious Creatures, pardon me. Yeah. Okay, I can share that now. Stop that screen. Share this screen. you know how
the wonders of modern technology.
Yeah. There you go. That's what it looks
like. Very nice. I dig the cover.
Yeah. It's him doing a fictional version of Rob Bottin's history. So if you're a big fan of Rob Bottin, you should probably try and get a copy of that.
Yeah, I will check that out.
And it's from Bounce House Press.
Screen print that real quick. All right.
Yeah. So it's not, it's sort of about Rob Bottin, but it's not. It's because you can't break. It's a really good book. I read that, and I had Tony on my podcast a while back. If you check my history on my podcast, you can see the interview with Tony and learn more about it.
Very nice.
So, but yeah, so there's that as well. All righty then. Whoops. Pull back again. I always push the wrong button for that. So I want to thank everyone for watching, and I want to thank Bobby, of course, for being my co-host this week. And tomorrow, I'll be drawing the mummy, the Karloff mummy, for our live draw session.
Very nice.
and that'll be hopefully not all weekend, but hopefully I'll get it done tomorrow. I hope. We'll see how long it takes. But in the meantime,
I've thought about I should do one of those live things where people can watch me work, and then I realized how boring it is watching me write. There's a reason there's no reality shows that follow around writers.
Well, it depends. Do you talk to yourself while you write?
I cuss at the screen every once in a while.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the thing that is probably the most odd and animated thing I do. Someone gave me this advice fairly early on about working through dialogue, that after you've written it, walk through the house and read it out loud. And so you print it out and you can walk through the house. And so you're just walking and reading dialogue for all the characters. And then you find yourself, a gunshot goes off and you find yourself going, pew! Oh, there's an explosion, And so, yes, if people were to see that, my brother walked in on me one time, and he had a key to my house.
My dad always asks, who the hell are you talking to?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm having an argument with 52 characters at the same time.
It's like, why won't you do what I want you to do?
Because it's not your story, it's mine. You're supposed to write what I'm doing.
I have my little muse here to keep me busy.
Oh my God.
Herbie keeps me out of trouble.
That's cool. Alrighty then. Well then, once again, thanks again, Bobby Nash, for being my co-host this week.
My pleasure.
Folks, if you want to reach me, it's Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRaven2, DeviantArt.com/BrightRaven. You're watching Quoth the Raven and Lewis BrightRaven on YouTube. To reach me on email, quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com. If you can't reach me there, try LewisBrightRaven at yahoo.com. On Mondays, we do comics news and reviews. Wednesdays, we talk about what I got at the store or in the mail this week. Thursday nights, we usually have our guest night topical discussion roundtable. And Friday nights, we have our genre night discussion, whether it's fantasy, horror, science fiction, what have you, usually with guests. Saturdays and Sundays, we do our live draw. I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a safe weekend.